Now the Predators cross ice pass, score! Right off of the pass to the left side.
Hello, hockey fans, and welcome to Off the Post. I'm your host, Kyle Savedich. And before I get into the series between Boston Bruins and Carolina Hurricane, I want to say this is going to be up on Chicagoland Sports Radio. You can download, tune in to listen to this podcast. As well on Spreaker, this will go up on my personal page as well. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at IIVTechII for any updates, posts, all that other stuff. I also have my own Facebook page you can like and follow and comment on there as well. Same thing as my Twitter handle. This series, I had a feeling, right, that the Boston Bruins were going to beat the Carolina Hurricane anyways. But then after the first two games, where Boston scores they score 5 to 6 goals and only give up 2 goals, I knew that this series was probably going to end up in a sweep, but I didn't want to be sure until after game 3 because Carolina hasn't lost at home until this series, right? Hurricanes have a goaltending issue. Okay, Peter Mrazek played very well all the way up until where he got hurt in game 2. Yeah, game 2 of the New York Islanders, and McKinney came in and sealed the deal. But was Mrazek really at 100% when he come into this game, at least 2 games, because he ended up getting switched out in game 3 and 4. But in the overall aspect, the Hurricanes really showed what kind of team they are when they face players that really get under people's skin, right? Marchand really got under the skin of Justin Williams. I believe it was in game 3. Yes, game 3 it was. He had 3 penalties, so total in the 6 minutes. Now, I don't remember if it was in game 2 or game 3 where Marchand kind of had that high sticking and Justin Williams turned around and ripped his helmet off, whatever that case may be. But for Williams, it's a matter of you're the captain, right? And you have to lead the team as your captain. And he said, this had to have been in game 2 because he owned up to his failures in game 2, saying he took too many penalties, whatever the case may be, he shouldn't have done it. Blah, 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 all that, and he turns around in game 3 and does the same exact thing. So, on that side of things, I really think the coach, even if I had the coach's name pulled up, I could never say his name. I wouldn't ever say it right. But the Carolina head coach, he really needed to rope his troops in and really talk about what's going on, with the situation that they're in. So, yes, he's the first-year head coach, and I think he's coming to the league very well. He took a Carolina Hurricane team that hasn't been in the playoff in 9 years and bring them to the Eastern Conference Finals to get swept. It is what it is, but Carolina's a young team. They fought hard. They were this storm surge kind of team that really broke through, but you're not going to get anywhere with penalties, lack of defense, lack of effort. I mean, the first game, they had the effort was there, but nothing really worked out for them. Game 2, they didn't really have the effort. The penalties, I mean, I think each team had five penalties each side. So there's 20 minutes of hockey that were just consisted of power plays. That's a whole period, really. Each team having, I think there was a couple that were, 4-on-4. I think there was a 5-on-3, so on and so forth. We'll get more into the discussion. I want to kind of get through the series stats here. Game 1, Boston 5-2. Game 2, Boston 6-2. Game 3, Boston 2, Carolina 1. Game 4, which was last night, Boston 4, Carolina nothing. And we'll run through the shots real quick to get an idea of how the shots were about. Boston 27, 25, 31, 22. That's all in order from game 1 to game 4. Carolina had 31, 23, 36, and 24. I'll get into Tuukka Rask stats here real quick. He had 99 saves on 114 shots, a 955 save percentage, 6 goals against for a 1.5 goals against average. Tuukka Rask is the reason Boston is this far in the playoffs right now. Hands down is the reason. He is the sole reason. And I said in the last podcast, in order for Boston to move on, they're going to need him to play very well, and he did. Now, on the Hurricane side, right, you had a bit of a goaltending issue, right? Peter Mrazek played the first 2 games, 42 saves, 52 shots, a 806 save percentage, 10 goals against with a goals against average of 5. Curtis McElhinney, however you say his name, had 48 saves, 53 shots, a 899 save percentage, 5 goals against with a 2.5 goals against average. He played a lot better than Mrazek did. And I don't know if that's because Peter Mrazek ended up having an injury, with the injury coming off of the New York Islanders. My biggest thing was in game 2 when Boston was just hammering away. They were scoring goals. They were up so much. Let me look real quick here at that game 2. What the score was before Carolina got those 2 kind of crappy goals that I think Tuukka Rask was just like, I'm out of this game. I really don't care. So yeah, I think they were up 6-0. They were up 6-0, but when the Bruins scored in the first or third period by David Backes, like right into the third period, right then and there, I'm thinking, why is Carolina's head coach not pulling him? Right? You got to pull Mrazek because it's just going to turn into a crapshoot. And it kind of did. They scored one more goal, and then Justin Williamson and Teuvo Teravainen, they all had 1 goal kind of thing going on, whatever the case may be. And the other interesting thing was that the Carolina head coach has never pulled a goalie in a game. He's never pulled the goalie to switch another goalie in and out. And you got to think of it as like a pitcher, right? If a pitcher's giving up home run after home run after home run, you really think you're going to leave him in there? No, you're going to pull him out probably after the 3rd or 4th home run, depending on what inning it is. I mean, if it's late in the game, starting pitcher, you're going to pull him, or even a reliever or a closer or whatever, you're going to pull him because, one, you're trying to win a game, and if you keep giving up home runs, you got to something's got to change. The same thing with the goalie. That's got to change. Yes, it's 5-0. It's more of a confidence thing at that point, right? It's more of the confidence. You keep him in there and he's just getting goals against. You got to pull him. Even after the second period, I think you should have pulled Mrazek. But then in game 2 or game 3 and 4, you put McElhinney in. He did a lot better, as you can see, with the goals against and the goal. I mean, he cut it in half. In those 2 games, he cut it in half. And it's the same team basically that Boston or Carolina faced with Boston. What I mean is Boston kept the pressure on. They were the team to beat. They're going in full force. But really what it came down to was, I believe it was in game 2, there was a lot of turnovers. Either Boston would get, not turn the puck over, but take away. Carolina was giving the puck over like crazy, and it came down to a defensive matter. And when that happens, you got to put another goalie back there to kind of say, hey, we gotta change things up here a little bit. Boston is in it to win it. Carolina was in it to win it until after game 2. I think after game 2, that's when things kind of settled down for Carolina, realizing, they've been in this position before, but they haven't, when they faced Washington, I don't think Washington was on their A game. I think they were looking over them. I think that's what happened this year in the playoffs. As a general, as all 4 wildcard teams made it to the second round, I think a lot of them looked over them and was like, hey, no issue. And I think New York looked over them, but I think Boston was like, yo, like, this team's good. We can't let this happen. We have to play our A game. And that's what ended up happening. They ended up playing their A game very well to end it in 4. But what I really think it comes down to a couple things. That Boston is a team that likes to get under your skin. They like to dig, and, Marchand's known for it. You can call him a dirty player. I see him more as a person that's going to get under your skin. I mean, there's a lot of dirty plays that happen in hockey in any sport really, there's any kind of dirty games or dirty players, but when you're in the playoffs and you're trying to get under people's skins, because this is that's what ends up happening, is you start to kind of get at people, and some people get frustrated, cause penalties like Justin Williamson did. Williams, not Williamson. I don't know why I keep saying that. But the real big thing was Marchand was playing, getting under the skin, but he kept himself kind of clean, which is very odd for him during the regular. There's a total difference between the regular season and postseason. Regular season, you're going to get caught with a couple things. Postseason, you're going to be like, okay, I can't let myself get too out of hand. I'm going to get under the skin. I'm going to talk some chirp. I'm going to get a late hit the ref doesn't see, but I'm not going to retaliate against something that's going to happen, right? But then it comes down to special teams here. Carolina had 14 power play opportunities. They scored 1. In Game 2 and Game 3, Game 2 they had 4, Game 3 they had 5. That is something that they should have cashed in on. They should have cashed in, and they didn't. Boston, on the other hand, their power play is outstanding. They went 2 for 4, or 2 for 5, 2 for 2, 1 for 5, and 2 for 3. They had 15 opportunities. They scored 7 of them for 46%, while Carolina was 1 for 14 and at a whopping 7%. That Game 3, when there was a period of nothing but penalties, you have to cash in, but that's when Tuukka Rask comes in, right? He understands the game. He knows what's going on. He's going to play out of his mind, and that's what he did. But Boston really getting production from their bottom line, their third and fourth line through the first 3 games. Then their first line comes in and really seals the deal. And that's something that needs to be done through these playoffs, because like I said in the last podcast, was you're going to have the first and second lines going at it. Third and fourth lines are the people that are going to score. So that was a key example. The first 3 games, the third and fourth line really kicking in for Boston. There has to be a point where you have to fight back a little bit. And even though you're down 3-0, watching the game today, I think Boston played a perfect game. I mean, obviously, Tuukka Rask played a perfect game, having a shutout. But when your goaltender is playing hot and your defense is backing up, you're going to get more opportunities like that. I have Boston all the way, because on the other side of things, I don't see Martin Jones or Bennington from St. Louis playing as well as what Tuukka Rask is. And when you come down to who's the hottest goaltender is going to end up winning a Stanley Cup or winning a series, blah blah blah. In that side, I don't know who the hottest goaltender is. I mean, it's a goal fest. And there's no elite goaltender over there. Martin Jones is an experienced guy, but he's not a goalie that is going to really shine, because he's just I don't know he's just not one of those goalies that's going to shine. Now, he's going to shine in some moments, and he's going to have key saves here and there. I mean, all goalies do in the NHL. But he's not going to be that guy. He's not going to be the guy that's going to help them win a Stanley Cup. Bennington is a rookie. I think I think St. Louis has the team around him. He just doesn't have that experience yet. His rookie year, he makes it to the Western Conference Finals. That's good experience. That's something he needs to work off of. And even if he doesn't make the Stanley Cup, he's going to look upon it and be like, all right, cool. I gotta work much harder than that. But on Carolina's side, you have 2 older goaltenders. What are you going to do there? I don't know. I know that they got a trade from Scott Darling from the Blackhawks. That's why they have like Teuvo Teravainen. They have a couple other people. I don't know what happened to him. But for Chicago, he played very well. He was a good backup goalie. I was very upset when Chicago got rid of him. And then we ended up getting like Cam Ward out of it. And whatever, that's beside the point. But my point is here, is you had a goaltender who was just coming in. When he was with the Hawks, he was like 27, 28. He was up there, but I think he was starting to kind of get into his role a little bit. They must have got Mrazek and thinking, oh, he must be much better, but he didn't do anything with Detroit. So I don't know why Carolina went that route. They had a potential goaltender who could have won a Stanley Cup with Carolina if they were to have used him. So I'm not sure. I don't know if it was injury or whatever the case may be. If you're a Carolina Hurricane fan, you can comment and let me know what that issue is, like what happened there. I'm not quite sure. I didn't do my research on it because, I don't care about Carolina. I didn't think they would make the playoffs in the first place. I didn't think they were going to make it this far, but they did. They played really hot. I think it was just that they caught fire at the right time, and then they met the Bruins, who was also very hot. But for Boston, what they need to do to continue the dominance is, yes, they're going to be rested. And I think the St. Louis San Jose game series is probably going to go to game 7. So that means the Sharks going to be playing, if the Sharks move on, they're going to be playing 21 games, right? Back to back to back to back with a couple, not back to back to back, but you get my drift, with maybe 1 or 2 days where they had 2 days in a row off. And especially, I'm not sure who's going to get home ice advantage on that portion of it, because I think San Jose will. No, I don't know, because they're both ranked 2. I think it's going to come down to points, and I think Boston would take that, but I'm not quite positive. But if San Jose has to go to Boston first, being done with the game 7 is at San Jose, because they are the highest ranking seed, going all the way across country to come to the East Coast, there is going to be some fatigue, jet lag. I don't think it may not hit them in the first game, but the second game it definitely will. Then they have to travel back all the way to San Jose, and Boston, will have to travel the same distance, but they have those 2 games at home. But, things could be reversed on either side if, it's a different scenario if Boston goes that way, but I'll make my prediction and talk more about that if that happens. Same thing with St. Louis. St. Louis will have to travel to the East Coast. It's only Missouri. It's only half of what San Jose would have to do. But if Boston can keep the heat going, I think Boston, me personally, sweeps, I think sometimes hinder teams, especially early, late, sometimes. It depends on the series. If it's a close series all the way through, then you kind of keep that momentum. But when you have blowout games, the last 2 games were really close until that last game, which they scored an empty netter. But if the games aren't close, you kind of get that swagger to you, like, yeah, we swept this team. We're going to the Stanley Cup Finals. We're going to be that good, versus a team who had to fight their way into the Stanley Cup Finals. There may be a bit of a, positive side to that team that's already hot versus the team that was hot, had they could end up having a week off, then coming and trying to find their legs again. So if I'm a Boston fan, I would have hoped maybe the game would have maybe gone to game 5. Game 5, I think, is a bit better because of the time off. But, getting a clean sweep versus a team that, even though the Sharks are up 2-1, they can win the next 2 games, and bam, we're in the Stanley Cup Finals already. But it's just depending if it goes to game 7 or not. Tuukka Rask still has to play very well. Boston can't take penalties because both of San Jose and St. Louis can score. They have the ability to win series. They have ability to try and find a way. That's why the Western Conference Finals is going to be more entertaining than Boston Carolina. Boston Carolina had a lot of hype to it because Boston is Boston and Carolina is like, bam, we're hot, let's go. But San Jose and St. Louis is a toss-up. I'm like, I don't know who's going to win out of this. So I'm just going to pick the team that I think is going to be the hottest, and that's the team that's going to go. But here's an interesting thing. While we're wrapping things up here's a quick interesting little fact. Boston Red Sox win last year. The New England Patriots win the Super Bowl this year. And if Boston wins, that's 3 teams that win a championship in less than 365 days. The only one you're missing is the Boston Celtics. And I think they lost like the first round. Right? I forget who they are. I don't really pay attention to basketball because, this is a hockey podcast, right? So we're more along the lines of hockey. But that's still crazy to think that 3 teams from one city could possibly win a championship. That's going to be historical because I don't think anyone has done that. I know it was close when I believe Boston faced Chicago in the Stanley Cup Finals in 2013. But that's why I'm going to give an edge to Boston here. Even though San Jose, I guess they went in, 16? They went to the Stanley Cup Finals and lost to Pittsburgh. But Boston is one of those teams that's been in the Stanley Cup Finals in the past decade 3 times. While San Jose's been twice, who are you going to really give the edge to? I'm still going to give it to Boston. I'm still thinking they want that second ring. They weren't able to do it against Chicago. They did it in, 2011 or 2012 they won? I forget what year it was. It's going to be, no matter what, the Stanley Cup Final is going to be a good game, a good series. I hope it doesn't end in a sweep. It should be a good one, but like I said, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here. Remember, this podcast will be on Chicagoland Sports Radio. You can download, tune in, and go, I believe it's chicagolandsports.com, or chicagolandsportsradio.com. That is ran by the school that I am a part of. You can listen to my podcast there as well on Twitter or Spreaker. Just look up Off the Post on Spreaker by Kyle Savetich and you should find it. I also have another podcast, VTech Talks Blackhawks Hockey, which is all about the Blackhawks. So if you're a Blackhawks fan, be sure to go over there and get on that hype train there. I also have my own Facebook page, same as my Twitter handle. But I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I hope you kind of got my perspective on things and what I saw from my perspective as a fan perspective. I'm not an analyst. I am not certified in hockey to tell you exactly what's right and wrong, but I am here from a fan's perspective, watching the games, understanding what's going on. Like I said, if you have a comment, question, concern, or anything, just tweet at me, all that other good stuff. But I hope you enjoy the rest of your night, rest of your evening, whenever you're watching this, and hopefully catch you in the next episode.